Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are back on my Eumidian Hatchery nonsense with a bit of a spicy brew today. We're playing Death Shadow, but this is not the Death Shadow deck that you would expect when you hear the words Death Shadow. So I wanted to play Eumidian Hatchery and Death Shadow because I want to play basically everything that I can with Eumidian Hatchery because I love this card. And I was thinking about how to make this work, and the obvious thing was Eumidian Hatchery plus Perilous Research. We've seen this in some Esper lists, and this just allows us to sacrifice the hatchery, we get cards off of it, and then we get all the tokens. So that's a pretty nice little bit of synergy there. And then what's also good with Perilous Research is sometimes sacrificing Tamiyo clue tokens. We can get 2 cards out of it instead of 1, and you do need to have material to make the Perilous Research work, but that's, that's fine, we've got that. But then I got to thinking, just playing like a Death Shadow tempo style deck list doesn't make a lot of sense because we're going slower in terms of lowering our life total. So we're not trying to just jam down this Death Shadow early doors and ride it to victory. We are trying to sort of control the game for a bit and draw a bunch of extra cards and then land the Shadow. And this put me in mind of Psychotog decks from back in the day, where you would basically be this blue-black control deck, and then you would play a creature like Psychotog that could win the game very, very quickly in 1 or 2 hits. Quite often just 1 hit. So we're not going to have the 1-hit kills with the Death Shadow, but maybe if we get our opponent low with our hatchery tokens, that's a thing we can do. And what this also means is we have the ability to go tall with Death Shadow and then wide with the Eumidian Hatchery. So that's quite a nice divide on how we can approach games. So we've got our card advantage engines in the Tamiyo and the Perilous Research. Not really an engine as such, but it's a nice card advantage spell. Technically, it doesn't feel like one unless you're sacrificing something like Eumidian Hatchery, but being able to just dig in a little bit deeper than a lot of decks in the format do, because a lot of decks are just doing Brainstorm and Ponder action. We're going a little bit bigger than that. We also have a Sauron's Ransom. This is kind of like a bit of a factual fiction type thing, so it's 3 mana, you choose opponent, and they look at the top 4 cards of your library and they give you a face up and a face down pile, and you can choose one to put in your hand, and the ring tempts you, which does a whole bunch of other things. But aside from that, it's everything you would expect, really. So, we got our Force of Wills, our Thoughtseizes, we got Fatal Pushes, we get to play Bitter Triumph as a removal spell, and this is actually going to help us make the Death Shadow be like a viable threat and stuff like this. And we've obviously got Orcish Bowmasters, which is just a great card. I don't really need to talk very much about. And it also answers opposing Bowmasters, which is something we want to do when we've got these Perilous Researchers in our deck. We only have 1 Watery Grave to fetch. Generally speaking, we're going to be playing on Underground Seas. It might even be a situation where you can cut this entirely. I think I'm also just going to remove one of these Underground Seas and give us an Undercity Sewers. It doesn't make it as neat in the window, but I think it's right to have 1 Undercity Sewers in here. And yeah, that's the deck we're playing today. Sideboard-wise, bunch of sideboard cards. Some of them I think are relatively important to talk about though. So we've got a Sauron's Ransom for when we need to have more card advantage when we're trying to beat our opponent's longer game. We just need to sort of up the amount of cards we can draw. So we have Cursed Totem in here because we're not going to be able to beat a Nadu deck very easily because they're just going to be able to undo all the trading that we're trying to accomplish here. We've got Null Rods. The Ratchet Bombs, these are important because Channels of the Void is going to be pretty good against us. We're very low curve here. So having the Ratchet Bomb to blow those up is going to be handy. We've got a lot of Hydroblast because I'm a little bit worried about the red matchup in some respects. And being able to trade 1 for 1 instead of 2 for 1 is really nice too. And everything else is pretty much expected. Toxic Deluge, this is one that you haven't seen for a little while. It's just a nice sweeper that also plays into what we're trying to do. I should also point out that we are at 20 lands here, so we are going a little bit bigger with our mana count. But that's partly because we sometimes want to have permanents of sacrifice in Perilous Research. We'll see how this all pans out. So we're very much on a brew here. I haven't really tested this at all, so we're just going to go in and see how it fits together. I think we're going to have a lot of things to talk about at the end of the video, so stick around for that one. Please remember to like and subscribe, and if you want to become a member to support my channel, it's just $1 a month, and then you get to see my videos early and support the channel. Alright, plug over and done with. Let's jam some Eumidian Shadow. If you are looking to buy some Magic cards, not only does 3for1 Trading have a wonderful online store linked in the description of this video, but they will also have booths at upcoming events. MagicCon Atlanta from the 26th to 28th of September, Eternal Weekend Pittsburgh from the 9th to the 12th of October, and Spiel 25 in Essen from the 23rd to the 26th of October. Whether you're looking to sell off cards you don't need or add more to your collection, 3for1 Trading has got you covered. Alright, here we are. What do we want to do with our first turn? I don't know. We're keeping this hand though. Leading off on the Thoughtseize or the Tamiyo. I think given the nature of this format, we probably need to lead off on the Thoughtseize. Because we don't just want to get absolutely bodied by some sort of combo deck. Right? So I think we're just going to get an Underground Sea. We'll fire in the Thoughtseize. Let's have a peek. Alright. It is a combo deck. So they have a Balustrade Spy here. Double Thoughtseize, not very nice. We can take the Boggart Trawler, cut them off of black. So there's several different ways that we could approach this. We could either Take the Boggart Trawler, cut our opponent off of black. There's no one draw that gets them into the Balustrade Spy next turn. If we take the Balustrade Spy and our opponent has a reanimate next turn, then they can get into the Balustrade Spy the turn after. So that's kind of interesting. Although they are a 60 card deck, which means they might not have the one of reanimate. Interesting choice. We could take the Dark Ritual, but they're probably going to Thoughtseize us. So if we take the Boggart Trawler, they don't get to Thoughtseize us unless they draw a black source. It's a Trawler. Just cut them off with spells here. And then next turn we can Thoughtseize plus Tamiyo. That way we get to use both of our Thoughtseizers. That was actually an interesting decision point, which you don't always get against the old Oopsal Spells decks. So drawn an Undercity Informer now. So I will take this Dark Ritual. And then I will pay 2 life. And I will deploy a Tamiyo. So our opponent has no mana. They also need to get this Thassa's Oracle out of their own hand. That's certainly doable. Right, so we get to attack with this. Press Wasteland. And pass. So we have the option of cracking the clue, or we can Perilous Research it away and gain 2 cards in the immediate. Whereas the sort of longer term plan of cracking these clues ends up being slightly better. So I think we're just going to go for the clue here. Okay, we drew a blank. Our opponent has gone to clean up and they've got rid of their Thassa's Oracle. That's actively good for them. Sauron's Ransom. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? So I could Perilous Research right now and dig for like a Thoughtseize or something. I quite like that. I will sacrifice this clue token. We'll flip our Tamiyo. Plus the Tamiyo. This can get back a Thoughtseize next turn to have another look. Bowmasters is probably fine here. Is it better than Shadow? I think so. We also leave up Emergency Perilous Research as well if we do it this way. Generally speaking, though, the discard plus counterspell deck should be pretty good into the old Oopsal Spells deck. Right, let's go and get ourselves... It's going to be an Underground Sea here. Let's fire in with a threat. Ping our opponent's face for 1. And then they can go to clean up. What are they getting rid of here? A Thoughtseize, sure. A Force of Will, obviously an excellent draw for us. I'm going to minus this, get back a Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize our opponents again. Fell the Profane is stuck in their hand there. I guess we just take that. Make life more difficult for our opponent. Being able to Thoughtseize people's lands feels good though. Big fan of doing that. So let's bash. And then I will deploy a Death Shadow with the ability to Force of Will and also Perilous Research to draw some more cards if I need to. I think to keep the velocity going here, I'm just going to Perilous Research. Does it matter what we sacrifice here? Probably the Wasteland. We want to keep the pressure going. Upticks the Tamiyo. Play out the Hatchery. Bowmasters pre-combat because this gives us the ability to deal 1 more point of damage. Just keep the pressure going. Go attacks. So this is 4, 5, 6, 7. And then next turn we have 7 damage again, which is 14. But we have an extra one here, which is 15. So we need to find 1 more point of damage. We can't kill our opponent this turn with Bitter Triumphing this guy. So I think we just let it go for now. And then next turn we can Thoughtseize again. And we just have lethal. Agadim the Undercrypt. Did you find everything you needed? A Dark Ritual. We're just going to cut this off right now, I think. Alright. We managed to get game 1 against Oopsal Spells. So what you're saying is the deck is perfect. Excellent. So, Oopsal Spells. I would like some Graveyard Hate, even though it's not the most exciting. I will take these Force of Negation because they actually do something. Curse Totem does something. Consigned Memory does something. So these are some options we have available to us. The Null Rod's also pretty good here because they stop our opponent from being able to use all their artifact mana or their Charbelcher pivots. I don't think we need the Sauron's Ransom here. Nihil Spellbomb, pretty darn good. We'll keep that one in there. Fail Pushes and Bitter Triumphs are probably on the weak side. If our opponent goes into the creature pivot plan, that could be interesting. Then we'll take out one of the Tamiyos. I like having a Tamiyo to just keep buying back Thoughtseizers. Do we want to hedge and keep like a bit of Triumph? Just so we've got one in there somewhere. Interesting. Would I like to have one to dig for? No, I think we'll just send it like this. When we see our opponent's pivot, we can work it out. You tend to see a lot more of the Charbelcher pivots than you do the creature pivots. Okay, so we have Force of Will blue card plus Nihil Spellbomb. Like, it doesn't get much better than this for us. They kept 7, so we should lose this game. That's what their deck does. We could, like, cut this off straight away. A Lion's Eye Diamond. Okay. Some spooky cards. A Dark Ritual. Okay. I don't feel very safe. Alright, let's fire this Force of Will. Do you have a Pact of Negation? They do have a Pact of Negation, so we get to die on turn 1 through Force of Will. Cool. Let's see what our opponent reveals, because this is relevant. We're going to reveal pile here. Let's see how they sideboarded. Now, they might sideboard differently for the next game, but I would like to have a look. So, what have we got here? Yeah, there's not really any creature pivot here. It is just what I was expecting. Okay, they got Beseech the Mirror as well. Sure. Okay. Do we want Ratchet Bombs? I don't think so. Like, the reason you might want Ratchet Bombs is because you can blow up any mana they play out to dodge discard. I think if we're on the play that game, we also still lose. So it doesn't really matter. It's just 7 card hands from Usul Spells decks win the game the majority of the time. Our opponent spent a bit of a time sideboarding, so they might be doing some other stuff over there. How do I feel about this hand? We have Thoughtseize, but we don't get to cast the rest of spells in our hand. Am I okay with keeping a Thoughtseize? I don't think so. I don't like this one either. Oh dear. I guess we're just going to Oblivion. There's no point keeping this one. They've got 7 cards in hand. I guess we do keep this one, as horrible as that is. I guess we keep the land. We're in trouble though. We could have just kept that hand with Thoughtseize. Now that might not have gone anywhere. But here we are. Ponder. Okay, I will put a Fairy Macabre in my hand. That gives us something to work with. And then next turn we can fetch away the thing. We'll have a Force of Will in our hands. So we just need to find a blue card to go with it. But if we get Charbelcher this turn, then we die. The Fairy Macabre doesn't always win against Usul Spells. Okay, am I supposed to shuffle away so that we have a good draw next turn? Or do I just want to stop my opponent from being able to win right now? If they can't win on 1 mana, then the Wasteland here is good. I think I'm going to fire in the Wasteland. Makes our next draw more awkward, but I think we just need to tread water for a turn here. Because the more mana our opponent has, the better they are against Fairy Macabre. Alright, this one is untapped. Duress. Okay, we're going to lose this Force of Will. But we have this Fairy, but they now know about it. So all they have to do is wait till they have 5 mana, and then they go off then, and then they win. Okay, so we play this land out. This can go and get our Surveil lands. We get a little bit of a look into what is on the top of our deck, and hopefully it'll be like a Thoughtseize or something. A Lotus Petal, we're going. No, we're not going. We're just playing something out. Interesting. Here comes the Surveil land. Oh, it is the Thoughtseize I wanted. Okay. We're still very much in damage control rather than actually doing anything though. But we mull to 3. Goblin Charbelcher, Chrome Mox, Cabal Ritual. Interesting. I think the Cabal Ritual is actually the scarier one here. As weird as that is. We can't take out both Charbelchers. We can draw a Null Rod though. I'm going to take the Cabal Ritual. Because this way, if we draw the Null Rod, we just shut our opponent's entire hand down. I will play out this Flooded Strand. That means our opponent has perfect information. Which is a little bit awkward. But at the end of the day, as soon as they have the mana, they're just going to send it, right? So this is a Chrome Mox imprinting a Pact of Negation. Did they find 1 additional mana? They did not. Okay. They just want to get the mana out before we can Thoughtseize it. That makes a lot of sense. We can deal ourselves 3 damage, which puts us to... what, 14? If I can do maths? That's not enough here. I could just play out this Fairy Macabre and start beating down. That is a thing I'm allowed to do here. Look, when life gives you lemons, you attack with your Fairy Macabre, right? That's the world we find ourselves in. Alright, so now they can play a Charbelcher. They can't activate it yet, though. We have the possibility of our opponent bricking on mana, which is nice. Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm so smart and handsome. Look at this. Beautiful. Get in. So this is a line we actually play too by taking the Cabal Ritual. We take the mana that doesn't get shut off by the Null Rod. Oh, yes! We managed to win on a mull to 3. Eat it. Absolutely eat it, Usul Spells. Excellent. What a start to the league. Just beat Usul Spells on a mull to 3 with no ley line. Wowzers trousers. All right, on to round 2. Well, we have some black spells, don't we? Honestly, I'm going to try this one. I don't know if it's right to keep this one, but I would like to see how it pans out. We have blue cards, but they kind of already have a purpose arranged. And we can just play our black spells, which are good black spells. So, well, Death Shadow, he's going to be okay. There's not a lot of Swords to Plowshares floating around. Just a casual Island Ponder on the other side of the table. And a shuffle off of that. I'd love a Thoughtseize here. I'll certainly take another Bowmasters though. So you've got a Hatchery. Our opponent's not necessarily going to know what we're doing. In fact, I think it's quite unlikely they know what we're doing. But here we go. They can't Entomb Reanimate this turn. They would like to Thoughtseize us. What do they take here? I think I might just protect my hand, as weird as that is. You're not allowed this information, opponent. This is going to make them think. If they force of will to get his Thoughtseize through, that's a pretty reasonable exchange for me. A Brainstorm. Okay, we can pay for a daze though. Alright, we got the Force of Will out. Excellent. Have a look, my hand is pretty redundant. You can take one of the Bowmasters, I think, is probably correct. You need to work out what flavour of blue-black our opponent's on. Are they Doomsday? Are they Reanimator? Is it just blue-black tempo? There's a lot of options available in that colour pair at the moment. It could even be like an Esper or Grixis deck. Let's tap our Hatchery and move on. Start these counters building. So do I want to Wasteland my opponent here and start playing that game? Or are we just going to get a Bowmasters in? Our opponent probably has Bowmasters of their very own. We could Wasteland them and maybe that stops the entire game from happening. Or we can use this Wasteland later to make our Hatchery better. I think we're in Bowmasters now territory. This does get awkward if our opponent has a Bowmaster of their own. But the most common deck, the Blue-Black Reanimator deck, doesn't really run main deck Bowmasters. And Doomsday doesn't run main deck Bowmasters either. So it's just trying to dodge the blue-black tempo from the sort of trifecta of most played blue-black decks. And this shuts our opponent off from just having a Brainstorm they can fire off. And we've got the Hatcheries burning us down, so we're going to be able to assemble a pretty decent-sized Shadow quite soon. No play from our opponent. Interesting. So they probably have a Bowmaster of their very own here. But we can live with that one. Interesting. Which land are we playing out here? We want to play it before we go to combat because we want to be able to cast this around a daze. This costs us 2 lives. That'll put us to 14, 13, 12. So we can start getting in a Death Shadow quite soon if we do this. We can play the Wasteland though and force some action. Right, I'm going to play the Wasteland, then we're going to attack. If they have the Bowmasters, it's going to ping our Bowmasters anyway. If they don't have the Bowmasters, you know I'm just going to Wasteland this. An Entomb. Okay, so we've worked out what flavour of deck our opponent is on there. Understood. Not a big lover of the old Atraxa, but they missed on land drop last turn. Have they missed on land drop this turn? I think it is worth pushing our advantage here and sending in the clowns. We've already established that our opponent's probably not playing Bowmasters. Now there is a flex slot, so it's not impossible our opponent has Bowmasters. But if we pressure our opponent enough, this Atraxa will not be able to come into play. And we can make a Big Daddy Ooh. Alright, so my recording software crashed at some point in that game. I'm not sure when. I'll just give you a quick rundown before I do the little sideboarding here. So we had a little bit of back and forth. I kept pressuring our opponent and they managed to get the Atraxa into play and it just beat us really. I don't know where it cut off. I haven't checked because obviously I've just gone straight into recording again. But yes. Blue-Black Reanimator. How are we sideboarding against this? I would like some Fairy Macabres, please. And then what else looks good? Not much. Like the Sauron's Ransom is not unpleasant. We can have this and maybe trim on something like a Fatal Push. We need to find some slots for these Fairy Macabres as well. Obviously want to keep our Thoughtseizers. I think the Force of Will is fine, but not the most exceptional thing. So we can probably call it on 1 copy of Death Shadow and maybe 1 copy of Force of Will. Just depends how many creatures they're bringing in and how many Fatal Pushes we want to keep. I'm going to keep something like this because I think they're going to have more creatures post-board. So I'd like to lean into that a little bit by keeping 2 Fatal Pushes, but we can still trim 1. Okay, Thoughtseize with Force of Will backup. This will get us somewhere eventually. This is technically a win condition. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent. Interesting. They can't cast their spells here, so I'm just going to take their blue source and see if we can cheese this game out, I guess. So they're on basic Swamp Wasteland. They might just Wasteland us straight away. Oh, they drew Undercity Sewers. Where are you surveilling this? Put the left card on top. I believe it would be foolish of me not to immediately Wasteland my opponent here. And then we can Thoughtseize them again. Okay, this time what are we getting rid of? Probably the Brainstorm. That's the easiest way for them to fix their hand. It means that the information we have is going to stay reliable. We will need to find a threat at some point, but I'm quite happy to just Tamiyo and gain the card advantage until we can finish our opponent off. This is kind of a threat. We are much more on the control spectrum than you would imagine from Death Shadow deck. Alright, let's go and get... I think this has to be basic island. And I'll deploy a Tamiyo. If they want to interact with my Eumidian Hatchery, we get a bunch of guys, then we can start pressuring them. There is the Wasteland. You can cut me off black and give me 3 guys. And then I can just ponder my way through the rest of the game. An Orcish Bowmaster. Is that where I fight here? Feels like if we fight over this, we can do it around a daze. And then we can just ride this Tamiyo to victory. Another Thoughtseize. I would like to ponder first. I think getting cards out of this Tamiyo is going to be really important. This is an any order in shuffle, I think. We did have the Perilous Research there. We probably should have activated the hatchery at our opponent's end step, just to make another token on this. But we need to be a little bit wary of our live total. Alright, let's have another look. There's no dazes or anything that we have to worry about. A Barragoyf. Not a big lover of the old Barragoyf. A black spell might be difficult to cast. I wonder if they will actually fire off this Wasteland now. We could have been in a situation where we got 4 counters off of this. Okay, they found a blue source. What are we going for? Are we just playing out the Douthie Voidwalker, or are we getting Tamiyo down? It's the Douthie. Okay. Our life total is taking a bit of a hit here. Are we in a situation where we have to kill this? Probably. I'm not discarding a card. Alright, there goes more of my life points. Okay, and we're going to get no guys because the Douthie Voidwalker takes out our land. That is awkward for us. That's a good play from our opponent there. We could have held the bit of Triumph to try and play around that, but I think we were best off trying to see if our opponent didn't see it. Now our opponent can get Tamiyo down, and then we're the one that's struggling for mana now. The fortunes of us have flipped quite a lot this game. We've done so much work to our own life total here. Orcish Bowmasters. Not a bad one to have access to. At least our opponent isn't pressuring our life total yet. Force of Will, Perilous Research. We need another land. We found another land. Okay, and it's a Surveil land. I will attack with a Tamiyo. I'm not expecting anything like a Kaito from our opponent here. But they get to start cracking clues before we do, which is really annoying. Yeah, so we took 5 damage from our Eumidian Hatchery and got nothing out of it. Which is unfortunate. No Surveil land is really interesting there. I guess they just really want to play on basics. But they've already got an Underground Sea. I think I would have just fetched a Surveil land. Unless they only have the 1 Surveil land, because we did blow 1 up. But normally these reanimated decks have 2. So maybe our opponent's build is slightly different. Yep. They're starting to crack clues. We can start doing that ourselves momentarily. Do we just want to get a basic here, though? So we can play on basics. I think we do. A hatchery. Let's attack with our Tamiyo. And we can leave up cracking a clue. Or we can make a Bowmaster. I will play out the hatchery. Maybe our opponent tries to flip the Tamiyo with a Brainstorm this turn and we can get them. Okay. A Wasteland. I'm happy we fetched the Swamp now. Drawing a card. I think I'm just going to get the Bowmasters in now. Try and get a little bit of extra value because we do need to try and win this game before our opponent can leverage all these clues as well. They could have a Bowmaster of their own. They could Brainstorm over the top. There's options available to them. They might be considering a daze here and whether or not they want us to tap our hatchery. Yeah, there it is. Alright, I will pay for this. Our opponent didn't float any mana, which is good news for us. Alright, we're getting a Force of Will. So they just wanted to deal us 1 damage. Interesting. Okay, let's crack a clue. Perilous Research. Okay. And play this Polluted Delta out. So we can get 2 1/1s at the cost of going to 1 life against an Orcish Bowmaster deck. I don't think that's the way here. Ponder from our opponent. But we can also cast this Perilous Research looking for something. If we need like an emergency answer to something. Because we can find Force of Will blue card potentially. Or if we just need to make sure that we have enough stuff for the following turn. Interesting. We can flip our Tamiyo next turn. They can flip their Tamiyo this turn. Bitter Triumph will require us to discard a card because we're not going to be able to pay 3 life anymore. The Hatchery cannot pressure a Tamiyo. So it's a little bit awkward there. If they Wasteland our Hatchery, do we activate it? They want to reanimate our Orcish Bowmasters. If we crack the Hatchery now, we go to 1 and the Bowmasters kills us. So we don't get to use this Perilous Research. Yep. The best deck is still the best deck as it turns out. Okay, that's going to put us pretty low. And it's going to make our clues exceptionally poor. They're not attacking. A Bitter Triumph. So we can kill off an Orcish Bowmaster here. And then we can't Perilous Research. We can hold for a little bit longer. Alright, this is horrible, but here we go. We would like to Wasteland our Polluted Delta. Let's kill this Bowmasters. Would I like to save this and go to 1? I don't think I can go to 1. This feels like our opponent is trying to get us with another Bowmasters. I think we're going to lose this one. Okay, goodbye to our little Tamiyo friend. Do you have another Bowmasters to force through any damage? Cracking the clue. Not a Bowmasters. Okay, we're on 1 life. A Ponder. Okay, I think this is our best bet. An Orcish Bowmasters that we can't cast without dying. We can take the Wasteland this turn, Wasteland our Hatchery, have a blocker, then have the Bowmasters on the following turn. It's ugly, but it keeps us alive. And gives us a follow-up play. So we're dead to reanimate, we're dead to an Orcish Bowmaster from our opponent. We're dead to a removal spell as well. Wasteland is fine. So we don't have much choice with this attack. Okay, they're not attacking with the army. Okay, in that case I'm happy to use this Wasteland as mana. Sure, you can draw a card. We'll go to the end step. And now we can fire in this Bowmasters in response to our opponent's next clue crack. And that can take out the Orc army as well. If they fire in a Wasteland, we probably have to act straight away. Because then we need to make sure we are playing around days and we do stuff. Yep, in comes a Tamiyo. Alright, here comes our Bowmasters. A Brainstorm. Good spells are good. This is going to flip the Tamiyo. Our opponents had enough mana that if they've had this play available to play around our Bowmasters at any point, then they had that ability and we couldn't really stop it. Okay, so Tamiyo flipping. They're going to be able to activate it, so our Bowmasters is not going to be able to pressure. But we could kill the Tamiyo here. Because we get to put the damage on this before they get to activate it. So I think we have to kill the Tamiyo rather than the Bowmaster token. But our spell needs to resolve and our opponent's doing a fair bit of cantripping here. I think a removal spell and we lose here. Counter spell we lose. But we're answering the problems as they present themselves. Please just draw the card now. Yes, so now we get to finish off the Tamiyo cleanly. We have more power on board. We also have this 1/1 Hatchery, but our opponent's just going to cast a Bowmaster and kill us at some point. Or reanimate a Bowmaster, or animate dead a Bowmaster. There's a million ways we die. There we go, there's the reanimate. GG's opponents. Yeah, that was tough. The first game, like I said, I'm not sure how much of it got cut off when my recording program crashed, but it felt like we were really, really close to winning that game. And then it just fell apart the last minute where the Atraxa had a pretty good selection of cards off of it. All right, we're 1-1. Losing to the best deck in the format is not really a shame. It's going to happen sometimes. And their deck is playing similar cards to us, but also just better cards with a better overall strategy with the reanimation plan. Let's go to round 3. Okay, I'll keep this one. We got Thoughtseize into Bowmasters. We can take a turn off to get this Undercity Sewers going. Having all these hatcheries does come at a downside, because we end up with quite a lot of mana in our deck that doesn't cast our blue spells. Alright, our opponent is doing cool things. Strategic Betrayal, Sinkhole. What is this? 3 mana, Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink. Oh, they made a better version of Vampire Nighthawk. Renew. Exile this card from your graveyard. Put a Flying counter, a Death Touch counter, and a Lifelink counter on target creature. That's pretty cool. They've got Pox. They've got him to Turak. Yeah. This is a little spooky. What is the plan here? I think the plan probably involves taking him to Turak. So we have something that we can sacrifice to Pox, which is not always a situation you find yourself in. We can also Wasteland our opponent next turn. Alright, they found a 1-drop. Or are they just tapping the hatchery now? Getting that sweet F6 value. Okay, so we can Wasteland this. They get a 1-1, but it takes them away from being able to do the things they want to do. Okay, I think it is okay. You can have a 1-1 for now. We don't want you casting your 2-drop spells, really. I will be activating this hatchery. We're going to be perilously researching quite soon, I would imagine. The Bowmasters can clean this up. Another hatchery. Are you kidding me? A Dark Ritual. Okay, this could get a little bit bad for us. A Quasi Revenant. Okay. That's a guy, isn't it? Putting these Death Touch counters on 1-1 guys is also pretty sweet. I like what our opponent's putting down. So next turn our opponent has Sinkhole available if they want it. If we play this out, it doesn't really do the most for us. But if we play out our Wasteland, we can Bowmasters down an insect token. That's not nothing. This Revenant is going to be something we'll have to deal with at some point, I'm sure. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We're going to have enough tokens to be able to put something in front of it quite soon. They're going to Sinkhole our Wasteland. And they're going to Sinkhole our Hatchery. Interesting. I will deploy this. I will take out your insect token. I will also then get a selection of friends. Okay, so we can triple block this Revenant if we want. They're not even attacking. Interesting. Not a bad situation for us to be in. A Death Shadow, you say? I guess we are going Sewers. Have a little surveil action. Do I want to draw this next turn? Yeah, I'll take this. And then I will... I don't really want them casting Pox is the thing. I'm going to take out the hatchery to keep them away from Pox. This gives them 2 1-1s, so we can trade 1-1s all live long day. And we can also put a Tamiyo in front of them next turn if we wish. We've got a decent selection of options. We can also just take the damage and just play a massive creature that forces them to hold back the Revenant to block with later on. Alright, I keep making land drops up towards Pox. Could you stop that, please, opponent? They're coming in. They're not coming in. Okay, so this turn we draw this Force of Will, so we don't have to worry about the Pox anymore. What do we deploy? Are we trying to Brainstorm, trying to find another land? I think that is where I want to be. Our opponent has 1 mystery card. If it's a Bowmasters, we have to react with our Force, but I can live with that. Okay, a hatchery is not nothing. We will play that out. I do want this bit of Triumph in the near future. So what goes back here? Next turn is what? Tamiyo. Or I think we want to keep all the blue cards for now. We'll keep this. So it probably means the 2 black cards. What order they go back? Probably Shadow, then Triumph. And we play out this hatchery, and then we pass. Alright, we've got a pretty interesting game on the go here. I think we sacrifice... We want the Perilous Research later on, so I don't think if our opponent casts a Pox, we're going to pitch this to it. What do we pitch to our Force? It's probably the... Is it the Ponder? I think it's the Ponder. Tamiyo is just really scary for our opponent to deal with. Like, blanking their 1-1 guys is huge. There's a Strategic Betrayal. The Long Goodbye. We can't be counted, so there it goes. So now they can attack with the Revenant. But we have a solution to that next turn. Okay, they don't want to do it. I do want to tap this. I didn't come here to not tap my Eumidian Hatchery a whole bunch. So we have Bitter Triumph, which kills this. Then we can force through a little bit of damage if we want. I guess we don't need to do this now is the thing, because we don't want them putting their counter on something. Also, when we kill this, if their Pox resolves for some reason, then we do get to take out both their insect tokens. Getting attacking. They are attacking this time. Okay, so now we will blow this up. Because of their Urborg, we can use the hatchery for black mana without ever having to worry about taking damage, if that's the thing that interests us. Are they going to put the counters on an insect? They can do that, but it is just a 1/1 guy. So it can trade with anything, but we don't have any big bodies yet. They probably... Have they intuited that we have a Death Shadow in our deck? Maybe. So next turn is probably Death Shadow plus Tamiyo. The turn after, we research, sack the hatchery, and that's probably going to be a good spot for us. Right, they're not doing anything with their mana. Okay, let's go for Tamiyo. Getting this flipped will probably win us the game. I think we'll try and trade an Orc army this turn as well. And then out comes the Shadow. It's going to be large. Little 5/5 action right there. So they're probably incentivized to put these counters on. This is not a thing we get to interact with. So they can just immediately make this Death Touch, which makes me not want to send my Shadow into it. So I'll have to find a solution through that. But a good solution is make a bunch of bugs. Just bug them out. Our opponent would like a Tomb Stalker. How do I feel about Tomb Stalker? Honestly, it's fine. We have many 1/1s. I don't think that's where we're fighting. Trade off some insects. No. This is only as a sorcery, right? Only as a sorcery. Okay. So we can attack with a 6/6 here if we want to. I think we're just going to Perilous Research. Get a bit more information about what we're actually working with. And then go from there. Right, we're going to get some bugs. We love additional bugs here. We get to flip our Tamiyo, which is obviously pretty darn good as well. We play this hatchery. So this is a 7/7, so they can block it with two things. They can fatal push one of them down. So we're now kind of doing the thing that our deck wants to do, which is quite exciting. If they block with everything, we fatal push one of the insects, and then we kill everything there. Their Shadow does get pretty big. And we just have this Force of Will that we can chill back on. And not have to worry about too much. We can get a bit of Triumph back if we want to. So they might consider the Tombstalker and two insects as a trade for the Death Shadow, because they might not know that we have a removal spell here. And they can see this on board, so they know that it's a 7/7 effectively. But if our opponent doesn't block, I don't think we pay. I think we just chill out on that, because we might want this Fatal Push as an instant speed trick. So I think from our opponent's point of view, it probably makes the most sense to block with one insect, maybe. Nope, our opponent disagrees. They blocked with nothing. So now they're at 10. We can grow the Death Shadow at will here. Our opponent's casting a Pox. What does this actually do for us? We would lose a Eumidian Hatchery. We would lose how many creatures? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we would lose all but 3 creatures. I think we just Force of Will this. We've been holding on to this Force of Will for the Pox for a while. It feels like we're in a pretty commanding position. We should just keep that going. That does grow our Death Shadow again. So now our opponent's in a situation where blocking is going to be kind of important. We also need to discuss what we're doing with this Eumidian Hatchery at end of turn, because if we tap it to lower our life total and increase the power of our Death Shadow, that does mean a Tombstalker hit can get us if the Tamiyo isn't plussing. What we could do is, if we draw a blue card, we can minus the Tamiyo next turn and get back like a force and sit on that. Right, I'm going to activate the hatchery, I think. A Tamiyo. So we can go and get a force back and just sit on that and be pretty happy with it. I think I'm going to do that. We're in a comfortable position here. We just want to keep things like this. So go to attacks. They have to block this, really. Probably just an insect under the bus, but that's fine. Just whittle away their creatures. You're going to make me exile a creature, because we got some spare creatures here. Alright, our opponent's had enough and has scooped that one up. Alright, we very much did the thing there. So, our opponent is playing Pox. What does that mean for us? So our opponent's build is one that has access to Hymn to Turax in the main, which I think is how I would like to play Pox. So that's pretty good. They're going to have some sort of graveyard recursion, so I like the Spellbomb. It also just draws a card, which is nice. We probably want a thing that gives us more cards. And there's a question over the Ratchet Bomb. It can clean out a whole bunch of tokens they have. And it can also answer some weird permanents they might also be playing. So I think there are 3 cards I'm interested in. Tamiyo is very good against what our opponent's doing. I think we still want the removal spells here. I think the Bowmasters is also pretty solid. The Thoughtseize is kind of the weaker link of all the things we're doing here. But there are definitely situations where we're going to want this. I think we'd get rid of 1 force. And then what are we trimming? We could trim a shadow. So we don't really want one super early. Although if our opponent's making our life total drop dramatically, then this becomes pretty good. Because we've seen actual factual pox, not just small pox. And what is the last thing we cut? Thoughtseize. These games can be top deck wars a little bit. Alright, we'll try it like this. We can always reappraise the situation. Maybe we're going to need a bunch of consigned to memories. We can consign the Eumidian Hatchery trigger if we wish. Also, if our opponent has some graveyard hate, that's going to shut down our hatchery as well. If they've got like leyline style cards. But there's quite a lot of different Pox builds out at the moment. It's a thriving community of people who enjoy brewing around the Pox strategy, and there's all sorts of different takes on it. Because it's quite a fringe deck, it means that there's not like a tried and tested build. There's like everyone's kind of got their own little jam. So we'll see what our opponent's running and get a better idea if we have to go to game 3. We have an opener that is not going to have any problems with Wasteland, which is nice. We've got the Tamiyo we can just start accruing clues with, which I think is where we need to be in a matchup like this. Just get something in that's going to give us the resources we need to get through what our opponent's doing. Because our opponent wants to suck all the life out of the game and then win with what's left over. If we just have a way of continually adding things to our hand, then they're never going to be able to suck the life out of the game. And if we can get this Tamiyo flipped, that is a massive problem for our opponent. Now, they're going to have things like Shoulder's Edict, but we can try and protect it with these tools that we have. Take it away, opponent. Polluted Delta. I don't think they're running blue. I think they just want fetch lands, so this could be an indication of something like a Bloodghast. They might also have removal, which kind of makes me want to Thoughtseize them first. Let's Thoughtseize them before we start doing the Tamiyo stuff. Are they going to surprise us with a Brainstorm here? No. But they could be cycling something. Or a Dark Ritual. Okay. It's going to be an opposition agent, maybe? Or a Bowmasters. A Disruptor Flute. You got it. I don't care about that. They've spent 2 cards on this Disruptor Flute. And we're about to take another card out of their hand. So they're going to be the one with very little. This doesn't work the way they want it to. Okay, so they have a Dark Ritual. They have a Wasteland we don't care about. They have a Pox. We can counterspell the Pox if we want to. Take this creature because we don't have any creature removal right now. Sure. Yeah, I don't think our opponent's hand is great. And I don't think the play they just did was very good either. This is not going to work because mana abilities still work. So the Eumidian Hatchery continues to tap for mana. It doesn't cost more because it's not a spell. They have a Wasteland here. But like I said, we can play around that quite easily. Let's go and get ourselves a little island. Deploy the really busted card in Tamiyo. And then we can protect it with Force of Will. Next time we can flip it and just go to the moon with it. Like, they might Pox now because it's going to get some value. But it's going to be a 2-for-2 trade. Hymn to Turax, though. 2 cards of my choice. Or, yeah, fine, you can hymn me. We kept the Force. I'll take it. Dark Ritual, and then they're going to Pox as their last card. And then we didn't discard the thing. Like, I'm not even sure that Pox is particularly good. Like, it kills the Tamiyo is the thing. I think anything that kills a Tamiyo is worth doing there. Right, let's attack with Tamiyo. So what we want right now is raw cards. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using our Tamiyo, and I think... So we can draw a card now and maybe get a land. And then we can deploy the lands. I think it's worth cracking the clue now. So we have this, and then we also get to ponder. If our opponent wants to Wasteland us, that's fine too. I think we're going to get Wastelanded, so I don't think the Sauron's Ransom is all that good. but the other two cards are fine. So we go top, 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 and we will not shuffle, we'll just draw this. We get to flip our Tamiyo, plus the Tamiyo, we all good. And then Tamiyo, as expected, is just going to completely run away with this game. They're not using their Wasteland, which isn't a huge surprise. Do I need to buy anything back here? Not really. I think we're just going to plus it for now. And then we're going to sit on this Bowmasters. Ripples of Undeath. Okay. This is some card advantage for our opponent. If you're unfamiliar with this one, they mill 3 in their first main phase, and then they can pay 1 mana and 3 life to get any card from the ones milled into their hand. It certainly builds up pretty darn quick, though. I will say that much. Alright, let's just immediately fire off this Sauron's Ransom. I like this card. It reminds me a lot of Fact or Fiction, which is a absolute banger of a card. Ooh, a 3 and a 1 pile. We're playing against Pox. We're always going to choose pile 1 here. We lost a Tamiyo. That's fine. Yeah, so against Pox, I think you're always just getting the bigger pile there. I will plus a Tamiyo. We can take 3 life, but then our Death Shadow is still too small. So we got Pox, Shoulder's Edict, and Strategic Betrayal. Pox is interesting here, but we're about to draw a lot of our deck. Alright, they've had enough, and that is the match. So we are 2 and 1. Not bad, not bad. Let's go to round number 4. Well, this is a hand, isn't it? This is definitely something that our deck can run into with the way it's constructed because of the Eumidian Hatcheries only tapping for black mana. Am I okay with Thoughtseize, Death Shadow? It's basically a 5-card hand. I think we can do a little bit better. This strikes me as better. And I think I'm going to get rid of the Wasteland. It's the least generically good card here because there are just matchups where it doesn't do anything. Let's hope our opponent's playing some sort of combo matchup where the Thoughtseize, Force of Will, 1-2 punch is good enough to wreck them. Okay, they are not playing that sort of deck. Interesting. Okay, they have a Stoneforge Mystic. We're not really ready for that. Let's get out of here. So they got Force of Will and Daze. So this could be Jeskai or Esper Stoneblade, or it could just be straight up blue-white Stoneblade. An important thing to note about Perilous Research is that the sacrifice of permanent is part of the resolution, not past like an additional cost or anything. So it does need to resolve if we want to blow up our hatchery. Meticulous Archive. Hopefully they scry it into the bin and it's no good for them. Nope, they're keeping it. Okay. Here's the other Flooded Strand we knew about. A Tamiyo. So they're going to Force of Will here. If we Force of Will. But I think I can live with that. So they're probably Force of Will pitching the Daze, would be my guess. That's exactly what happens. So we have a choice here. We could get 2 guys and dig our way into some more action. Is that really what I want to be doing right now? We're probably going to do it on our turn anyway, so we may as well do it right now. I think we need to go and get an... It has to be an Underground Sea here, doesn't it? Yeah, the wheels can fall off a little bit here. Let's draw some cards. Let's get some guys. Now we can sacrifice these hatchery tokens to draw more cards. But they do have a Tamiyo, which is going to blank our hatchery tokens. Is this a ponder moment? It probably is a ponder moment, isn't it? Let's try and find another mana source. Nope. Let's try and find another mana source. Failure has been achieved. We get to force 1 point of damage through here, which is not the most. Our opponent should just wasteland our Underground Sea. I think we had to get an Underground Sea in case we hit into a Fatal Push to answer this Tamiyo. But Tamiyo is just such a powerful game object. It's very rarely not the best thing in a game. Like the One Ring, probably one of the few things that can just stick out above a Tamiyo and ruin things. Okay. We are in trouble. So we can wasteland our opponent to try and keep them off of the ability to crack clues. That doesn't feel wonderful to me. I think we have to use this for mana. Alright. I think we are going to struggle. Okay, they are Esper. And cracking a clue. That's certainly better for us than them playing a Bowmaster. That would be really bad for us. Our life total is still above the Death Shadow threshold. Ugh. Well, this is a pretty horrible one to see. Now, our opponent doesn't have a second white source, so we might be able to wasteland them off of the ability to put stuff in, which is something that we might have to do, but we're going to wait and see what we draw for turn, and then we can make that decision. Well, well, well. Okay. I guess we're going to take their white source and hope that that's done enough to keep whatever at bay that they have. So they might be going for, like, Cryptic Coat just to get some, like, card advantage going, but they might already have a Cauldron in hand. If that's the case, then we are definitely dead. A Ponder. They shuffled off the Ponder. A Wasteland. Okay. Alright, so this way, if we draw a Hatchery, we can actually deploy a Death Shadow now. Because we're going to be going to 13 off this hit, and we can go to 12. Right, you draw that clue token, you flip your Tamiyo. All of a sudden, our insect tokens do literal nothing. Cool. Another Wasteland. So the problem with this Wasteland is if we play it out and use it, we're a long way from doing anything to this Tamiyo. So I think we have to leave it in play so that we have a chance of drawing into a Bowmaster in a couple of turns. I think we're just in trouble though. That's a big creature, isn't it? We could avoid this by Wastelanding, but like I said, we need to deal with Tamiyo, which is the onboard threat here. But I think we're just going to be got coming and going here. Perilous Research. Alright, I think I've had enough of this. I'm going to go to the sideboard. So this is a matchup where I actually like having access to a Sauron's Ransom, which is cool. So let's go and find that. This is something I would very much like to have access to. Our opponent's Tamiyo. Like, this isn't really where we want to be playing Force of Wills and stuff. We'd rather just have more removal. Ratchet Bomb kills Tamiyo, so that's good news for us. Curse Totem stops their Stoneforge Mystic. Is that enough of a reason to play a Stoneforge Mystic? Sorry, to play a Curse Totem just to stop Stoneforge Mystic. It's a little bit whatever, but maybe it's good enough. The Toxic Deluge is also fine here. It can kill a Cauldron. So if we get rid of our 2-for-1 answers and just keep more 1-for-1 answers, or possibly better than 1-for-1, I think that's a not bad place to be. Okay. Maybe we shouldn't have Perilous Research there. But we could have hit into removal spells and lands and things, and it could have been fine. We could have dealt with a Tamiyo. Okay. I'll keep this. I will play a Watery Grave, pay some life, and cast a Ponder. Wow, I like these cards a lot. So I guess we go Bomb on the bottom and then push and then Thoughtseize. So next time we're Thoughtseizing into potentially fatal pushing a Stoneforge Mystic on their turn. What have you got here, opponent? A Thoughtseize. Sure. What do you take? I think it's the Bowmasters, but it could be the Thoughtseize depending on their hand. Oh, they wanted the Thoughtseize. Okay. I'll play out the Hatchery here. I don't think we need to brainstorm around a Bowmasters. If our opponent's not committing anything to the board, we can just chill out for a little bit. Start stacking up our Hatchery. We want them to tap out for a Stoneforge Mystic. That would be best case scenario for us, I think, here. Or best case scenario, they do nothing because they have nothing. But then we can't do anything into their nothing. Alright. Here is the Stoneforge Mystic. We'll let them tutor and then we'll kill it. Because they know all of the cards I had apart from this Fatal Push. A Batterskull. Sure. That's pretty castable. So they've gone for this rather than something like a Cauldron. So they're kind of taking the middle path. Do I want to... I think I'm going to Brainstorm now. Okay. We've got some Ponders here. The Ratchet Bomb is interesting, but not really what we're about right now. I will redraw a Ponder. I will cast Ponder looking for a Thoughtseize here. I quite like the Wasteland. Right, so we bury the bomb and the push. Take this Wasteland. And we're going to strip them out of white mana. Okay. Our mana base should be a little bit better than our opponents because we're only 2 colour, but we do have these 4 lands that only tap for 1 colour in our deck. A Thoughtseize. Okay. They take the Bowmasters here 100%. I guess if they just sat around with a bunch of removal, maybe they take one of the cantrips. But I think you should be taking the Bowmasters here. Our opponent agrees. Also, that Wasteland we done the last cycle means that we don't get Bowmastered now, because they only get to play one mana spell because they've already tapped down. A Ponder from our opponent. Sure, I would probably be doing something similar on my turn. I think I am in the market for tapping this Eumidian Hatchery as well. We want to grind a lot of value out of this hatchery. Fatal Push we knew about. Are we... I think we Brainstorm this time. So the Ratchet Bomb and 2 mystery cards, right? Thoughtseize is big news. I would very much like to keep this. I think we go for the bit of Triumph on top. And then this will tap for our Thoughtseize. Okay, Quarter Complete we're not too worried about. Bowmasters we have an answer for. Force of Will is kind of annoying. I think the Batterskull is the long-term threat that I'm kind of worried about. I'm not a big lover of this Brainstorm either, though. I'm going to take the Batterskull. So I think there's a lot of different options you can take there. If we didn't have the Fatal Push, I wouldn't be so bothered by the Bowmasters. Sorry, I'd be able to just take the Bowmasters there. Alright, so we're using our Brainstorm. So they're going to put this Cauldron back into their deck. But we don't really have a clean answer for a Batterskull. We have to counterspell it or discard it. Once it hits play, they just get to keep bouncing it and looping it, and that's horrible for us. I don't think we tap this hatchery. We've already got one. Bit of Triumph we knew was coming. So they've got a Bowmasters over there. We also know they've got the Force of Will. So I'm okay to just get this Fatal Push into a Bowmaster if they send it. And they can counterspell that with a Force of Will if they wish. We can take a little hit from the Bowmasters, and I can live with that. Alright, let's push this guy. Alright, it's gone. So I'm going to cross this Quarter Complete. I don't think they still have that. So we've got Ratchet Bomb coming off the top next turn. Big Daddy Murktide, you say? That's a little bit spooky, since we know they've got a Force of Will over there. We also know they play Daze as well. Okay. Let's go for a Ponder first. Death Shadow, Orcish Bowmasters. How big is Death Shadow? Pretty big. Tamiyo can block the following turn. I don't think we can do this though. I think we need to go any order and shuffle. We need something that we can push through our opponent's counterspell with. I don't think we can afford to pay 3 life for this bit of Triumph either. Does that mean we're discarding this land? Or does it mean we are discarding this Ratchet Bomb? The Ratchet Bomb can answer the Orc army. We do get another turn to try and work this one out. So we play into Daze if we play this Underground Sea, but our opponent's probably not going to have a Daze at this stage of the game, right? Famous last words, I guess. Let's try and kill this. I will discard the Underground Sea. This does expose us a little bit to Wasteland, but we have to do what we have to do here. They did have a Daze. That is brutal. Okay, opponent. I don't feel very good about this one. Orcish Bowmaster. Yeah, that's a pretty nice follow-up too. So, Toxic Deluge is no longer a good draw for us because our opponent will just destroy our life total. Yeah. We are dead. So, the extra damage off the Bowmaster, 1 to the face, +1 on the Orc army kills us. Yeah, that was tough. We're 4 rounds in. It's 2-2. I think the first game of that particular last match where we kind of got messed up on mana, partly that's due to the way our deck's constructed, but I also think that was definitely on the unfortunate side of variance. So we're going into the final round to see if we can put a positive on the board. A 3-2 would be nice for this first draft. Let's see if we can get it. Okay, I can keep this one. Then we lead off on a Polluted Delta. Our opponent's going to be thinking about things like Entomb and that sort of jazz from us. And then we can go get Surveil Land, we can untap, deploy like a Bowmasters, or we can Brainstorm with a Fetch Land if we're looking for specific things we don't currently have. Play out the Polluted Delta and pass. Flooded Strand. A Volcanic Island. And a Delver of Secrets, a classic. I do like Delver of Secrets. Undercity Sewers. A Bloodstained Mire. We don't really need any more lands right now. The hatchery can come at a pretty significant cost here, but I think it's worth firing in. I don't think we get to play around Daze here. I think we just send our stuff. If we die with a bunch of cards in hand, that sucks for us. If we start tapping the hatchery, we can Wasteland our hatchery at some point, and then we end up with a bunch of 1/1s, which is going to be pretty good against our opponent's creatures. Now, the upside here is that our Bowmaster resolved. So not only did we get a nice Bowmaster in, which is good against our opponent, but we killed a creature, which is even more important. So that was a big turn for us. Dragon's Rage Channeler, sure. I suspect we're getting a Lightning Bolt on our Bowmasters this turn. Oh, they're having to ponder into it. This is interesting. So it's going to be land, creature, sorcery. It's interesting that they're valuing the ability to surveil more than keeping their channeler around. Because they could have done this the other way around and kept the channeler. So we get to kill this channeler now. And go our Orc army. Unless our opponent has some sort of free instant they can fire off. Okay. So what this tells me is that my opponent is probably trying to get a Murktide Regent going. So attack with ease. I'll deploy this Wasteland. I don't think this game is about Wasteland. Actually, no, I'll deploy this Polluted Delta, actually. So we have the bit of Triumph to try and kill this Murktide. So we could have Wasteland to try and keep them off Murktide, but I have a feeling that they would have the mana to play it anyway. Wasteland Delver Dex doesn't feel amazing. Yep, so they did go for this line. Okay, what are they doing with this fetch land? They must be casting some sort of spell. It's only a 4/4, so it's not actually the biggest deal. And a Delver of Secrets. You got it. Alright. Let's go to their end step, and then we will try and Bitter Triumph away this creature. That worked. We don't have another land that we want to get with this. Okay, we can attack with our Orc army here. I think we are quite far ahead here. Especially when we get to do Perilous Research in a sec. I think we're just going to go for this now. This gives us 3 power in the sky. Every time I trigger Eumidian Hatchery, it makes me feel happy. So, I guess we just want to get another hatchery in here. Or we could try and brainstorm. Okay, I'm down for brainstorming here. We have 2 blue cards now, including the Force. Okay. So, I think we bury the Wasteland and the hatchery here. And we deploy the hatchery. Am I playing around days? We didn't get caught by it earlier. I think we're just going to try and take out this Delver now. Okay. So we could have done that all pre-combat and got in 1 more damage with our Orcish Bowmaster. I imagine they have to kill our Bowmaster. Honestly, that's fine. That's not what we're fighting. We are the aggressor now. In a big way. Our opponent's got to string something together whilst they're getting beaten down for 5 a turn. We're about to drop a big boy as well. He's not going to be the biggest of big boys. But we can play him as a 3/3, and then a Force of Will turn him into a 4/4. Actually, no, we have a Eumidian Hatchery on top of our library, right? So we can make him dodge Lightning Bolt. So we should be fine there. Chain Lightning. Sure. If you're using your burn spells on my creatures, that's fine. We are a control deck, more or less. Send in the friends. Make another friend. So this is the mana ability that doesn't use a stack. So we can respond, and our opponent doesn't get to respond to us tapping the hatchery. Our opponent's happy to see the Death Shadow. It's not a card you see that often. What is this? Opera Love Song. Exile top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards until your next end step. Okay, I think that's alright. Land and Brazen Borrower. Will I counterspell a Brazen Borrower? I think so. If they try to petty theft this... The top card of our library is a Wasteland. So we will pitch the Brainstorm to the Force of Will, then we just sit on the Force of Will. Do we counterspell this? Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. But then we'd have to counterspell this on the way back. Actually, we wouldn't have to counterspell it. We'd just leave 1 guy back. Sure. I think that's fine. We're not going to attack the hatchery. Our opponent does have burn spells in their deck. So we go to attacks here. Get Shadow in. So we could Brainstorm here. Just need to get through 1 turn cycle, really. I don't really care for this. Oh, we just have double Force of Will, right? Just have double Force of Will into our opponent's 1 card. That seems very hard to lose. Alright, the deck is doing its thing here. Being bigger than these tempo decks and more control-y is certainly a good place to be. The Death Shadow is lethal on its own, and Brazen Borrower cannot block on the ground. 4 mana. No, 3 mana. Okay. You got a Borrower. You get to block one of the insects. And then we tap the hatchery and you die. Oh, what is this spell? A lightning bolt on this guy. Okay. And Death Shadow cracks in for lethal. Just how we drew it up. Okay. To the sideboard. I do not like that many Force of Will here. We'll trim a couple. What does look good? Toxic Deluge seems okay here. I like the Hydroblasts. They seem good. I'm not opposed to the Ratchet Bombs, and I'm also not opposed to the Sauron's Ransom. So these are a bunch of things I'm interested in. What do I not like here? The Spellbomb is okay, but I don't think that's how we're fighting what our opponent's doing. I think we get rid of the Spellbomb. I think we probably trim one Perilous Research here. So that gets us, what, 3 Hydroblast and a Deluge? Is Deluge that good when it costs 3 mana, though? Or do we just want the Ratchet Bomb? Alright, I've convinced myself I want the Ratchet Bomb more. What else do we not need here? Tamiyo is fine. Actually, I'm going to cut a Wasteland here. Wasteland's pretty bad against Delver. Okay, I like this spread of things. It's nice to have a Force of Will every once in a while in a matchup like this. Just, you know, I have this thing, I can sit on it, I know I'm okay. But generally speaking, I don't want to be pitching 2 cards here, if I can avoid it. Island Ponder, Thoughtseize, card advantage. The Thoughtseize isn't great here, but it's still fine. It takes the Corey Steelcutter if our opponent is running him, and that is something I would very much like to not have to tangle with. Threat or a Ponder? It's a threat. So I really like the Delver build of the blue-red tempo deck right now, because the ability to have access to a full set of 8 1-drops is huge. It just allows you to apply pressure, and then all your dazes and stuff are effectively giving you damage every turn. 2 life is kind of annoying here. 3 life if we include the hatchery as well. But I think we want to get the hatchery up and running. Brazen Borrower, Daze, Murktide Regent. Which of these am I most scared of? Right now or later on is the question. I don't particularly want to deal with a Murktide with what we've got going on right now. I think we take this. Like, we do have answers for Murktide. We've got a bunch of stuff that can kill it. But I think we need to... Alright, they're showing us a Pyroblast. Are they going to be aggressive with their Pyroblast or not? That's always an interesting one. So they can Pyroblast our Ponder here. Our opponent's going to make our Death Shadow good for us. Hydroblast. Okay, let's just fire in with a Ponder. Are you going to aggressively Red Blast this? I like it if they do it. I think that's good for them. We don't want another Hydroblast. We don't want another Hatchery. I'm okay with another 6-2. I think this is a shuffle. An Orcish Bowmasters. Big fan of that one for next turn. We will need to find a way of sacking our hatchery at some point. Even if it's just to get a chump blocker. Alright, we've got Surveil Land in the end step. We've got Fatal Pushes. We've got some bits of Triumph, so we can kill some creatures. We just need to draw them. But our opponent's going to turn on our Death Shadow now. So we can get a threat that maybe forces out a Brazen Borrower. Sauron's Ransom, kind of slow here though. I will deploy the Swamp. We don't really want to play into the Daze here. I'm going to play out the Shadow. And then I'm going to play into the board this lovely little Tamiyo. We should do some work. So now our opponent is in a weird situation of, are they attacking? Like, they probably still want to attack us, right? And lower our life total. Is this going to get the Pyroblast? It is going to get the Pyroblast. This means that we can Sauron's Ransom into something next turn. So our opponent probably Petty Thefts our Death Shadow this turn. That would be what my plan would be. So we're going to save this Bowmaster for the backside of the Brazen Borrower. It's interesting they didn't want to be mana efficient there. They're going to grow our Shadow. Obviously, it comes with smashing our life total down as well. So it's not just growing the Shadow. There is a downside for us. Yeah, okay. A Delver Secret. So that's something else we want to Orcish Bowmaster now. Another Orcish Bowmasters. I'll play out this land first. And then we will go Orcish Bowmaster. Take out his Delver Secrets. Attack 4/5. Our opponent will Brazen Borrow it. We will probably... I'm just trying to work out. It's 1 life either way to play the Shadow. This is basically one life that we're always going to end up paying though. But I imagine they might just take the 5 and then bounce it in the end step, so it takes longer for it to come back around. Right, would have liked to have had a counter spell for this, but it's not the case. Goodbye, Death Shadow. I think I'm going to use the Bloodstained Mire here. I'm a little bit worried about Price of Progress. Our opponent's got 2 cards and one of them is Daze. They have a Borrower they can play, but we have an answer for that Borrower already in hand. The issue that I have right now is this Delver of Secrets that is still on the board and still threatening us in a big way. They can Daze this to force us to tap the Eumidian Hatchery, which does put us to a multiple of 3. So I quite like that as a play. We don't really have a choice here. I think we just have to pay. The chance of us winning this game if our opponent has a lightning bolt are very low anyway. And if we can untap and get this Hydroblast in before our opponent draws it. Okay, so that's a redraw for a lightning bolt. But we get to untap and Hydroblast the bolt first. Having a look at the top card of the library, does that mean they have a fetch land in hand? Oh, sorry, they looked at the top card of our library. Okay, we're going to go to a slightly lower life total than I would like. Are we getting bolted? Okay, so they draw a card, we ping them with Bowmaster. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 damage is the best we can muster here. That's not enough, is it? What do we do here? I think we have to Sauron's Ransom. And then we can draw Perilous Research. Get a bunch of 1/1 blockers. So we have the line of putting the 1 damage on the Insectile Aberration, then playing the Bowmasters, killing the Insectile Aberration. That still leaves us dead to Brazen Borrower. So we need to dig for something like Perilous Research here. I do like resolving the old Sauron's Ransom. It's a cool card. What are your piles, opponent? We're also, you know, stone cold dead to Lightning Bolt. We don't get to hold its Hydroblast now. We have to find something that answers both of these creatures. Now, we do have 3 cards in our deck that do that on this board state, which is not nothing. We could bit a Triumph, but we still die, so we have to choose pile 2. What's in the box? Sure. Maybe our opponent will forget about what's going on in their hands. And this Brazen Borrower, maybe they make that mistake. I'll play a Chump Blocker and hope they forget about their Brazen Borrower. I suspect they will not forget about this Brazen Borrower. Yep, they're just going to attack with both and kill us. You got it. Okay, so we're going to the final game of the league here. Do you want to do anything differently? Do I want some Toxic Deluge? Do I want more Perilous Research for situations like that? Maybe I do. Maybe we just don't want any Force of Wills at all, and we just get like another piece of removal in. Or we can just get this other Sauron's Ransom in when the game gets a bit longer. Interesting. We could just take the Nihil Spellbomb as a thing that redraws and shrinks their guys that we care about. It's kind of interesting. Is that better than a Sauron's Ransom? Hard to say. We could have the Miser's Force in. Toxic Deluge is more for like little green decks than it is for Delver. Alright, I'm going to take the Spellbomb here. I think when we're on the play, we have the time to spend 2 mana to draw a card over the course of several turns. Alright, let's have a good opener, please, deck. Does this count as a good opener? There are some issues with this hand. Alright, I think we keep it. We have 2 removal spells here. We go and get our Surveil Land. Our opponent could play a Wasteland so that we can't get Surveil Land in the first turn cycle. But then they're not committing damage to the board, and that's fine. Just ponder. Don't play a 1-drop. It's so much scarier when they play a 1-drop. Okay, they didn't do anything here. Are we going to get Stifled here? Okay, now I'm thinking about Stifle, which is not something I necessarily want to think about. Okay. If our opponent cracks his fetch land, we'll crack ours, I guess. Actually, that's not even true. Because we don't want to expose ourselves to Wasteland, and we kind of want to get a blue source. Well, anything we get with this land will be Wastelandable. So I guess we just sit here. Maybe we're supposed to crack into the potential Stifle and just assume they don't have it because it's kind of a niche card, but the difference between a niche card and a card that doesn't see play is very different because we do have to respect Stifle out of a deck that looks like this. A Brainstorm. Who am I if not somebody to capitalize on a Brainstorm like this? Underground Sea. I'm expecting this to get dazed or we're lightning bolted, but then that's a lightning bolt not going to our face. And we've got lots of spells to play. If our opponent trades 1 for 1 for a bunch of stuff, then we eventually get somewhere good. Because our deck wants to do a lot of 1 for 1 trades and then win with gassing up, like Perilous Research, making a bunch of tokens. The Perilous Research without something to sacrifice is not so good, but we have Bowmasters, we can sacrifice a token, so that's okay. Hopefully our opponent plays a 1-drop that we could just kill immediately with the Bowmasters. They've only got 2 card types in graveyard right now. So even if it's a DRC, they won't be able to like cast some sort of instant to mill over 2 types. That's what we want to see, a nice little Delver of Secrets for us to gobble up. Do they have a second daze? There is a bauble. I guess we are firing in a Bowmasters in our upkeep in response to this draw trigger. What about second daze? Is that what we have, opponent? They did not have second daze. So we get a little bit of free value with our bow boys. We're out on board. We're looking good. And we don't get to attack. We don't get to make a land drop. So we are telling our opponent that a Wasteland on our Underground Sea is very good here. There is the Wasteland. They should go after Underground Sea here. There it goes. We are a 20 land deck, which is an awful lot for a Brainstorm Ponder style list. Okay, Chain Lightning killing our Bowmasters. We still have a 2-2 though. Another Bowmasters. Not like this deck. Give me the lands. If our opponent starts cracking into us, we do end up with Death Shadow as an option to play. And it's quite likely to be 1 hit, because we're going to be chipping our opponent down a fair bit here. Blue, blue. Murktide Regent, you say? Yep, that's a spooky one. Not a big lover of giant Murktide Regents. The Eumidian Hatchery. Are we deploying this Death... Sorry, not this Death Shadow. This Brit of Triumph. I'm playing around another days. Am I going to discard a card or pay 3 life? I think I'm just going to discard a card here. This could be a bit of a blowout. What are we discarding, though? I think it's... Is it the Ratchet Bomb? I think it is the Ratchet Bomb. Please don't have a daze. They didn't have a daze. All is right in the world. So, if I knew that was resolving, I would probably pay the 3 life. But I think we just need to be a little bit careful with our life total when one of our lands is Eumidian Hatchery. So we can use this Bowmasters to force through more damage if we want to. Or we can use it as a piece of removal for one of their creatures, which is what I would rather use it for. If we find a blue source, we do get to make a bunch of 1/1s, and that should be pretty good, because it gives us the ability to chump block Murktide Regents, which are the only thing we're really scared of at this moment in time. I don't think their build has Courage Steelcutter in, which could be kind of annoying for us if they do have it, because that is a card that can really snowball out of control. I think I am down just to get this Bowmaster in. Just keep the pressure coming. I'm going to bolt my... Okay, they're bolting the Bowmasters rather than the Orc Army, so we're still going to have a lot of pressure here. Hydroblast would love that if I had some blue mana. Where is our blue Urborg? Make all my lands islands, that'd be helpful. I really tie the rooms together on this deck. Our opponent's flooding out pretty fiercely over there. Alright, I'm going to keep stacking up this 1 hatchery. If we draw an island, we are absolutely in the money though. Obviously our opponent needs to draw something though, because they are not doing anything right now. And they are just going to die to our Orc Army in 2 turns. Alright, we're going to tap the hatchery again. Tamiyo. Guess what that is? A card that we can't cast. Maybe we are supposed to keep forces in just in case our mana ends up in a situation like this. If one of these blue cards was a Force of Will, I would feel pretty good. Alright, last turn for our opponent to find something. We got the GGs in chat. Alright. Alright, our opponent showed themselves the door. So we finished with a 3-2 record, which for a first draft of a deck is pretty good, to be honest. Especially when you consider the fact that like the optimal Death Shadow decks don't even exist at the moment because the deck is kind of bad. And there's no point playing that if you're in the blue-black space because there's other stuff to do. So the fact that we've managed to find a way of building it that managed to go 3-2, obviously, you know, small sample size, 1 league, etc. But I think that's pretty acceptable. And, you know, some of the rounds we lost were because our mana was bad, right? Like, we just couldn't get our spells out. And maybe that's something we can address in the deck building side of things. So let's talk about this list. The Eumidian Hatchery felt pretty good with the whole Shadow, but I think 4 hatchery is too many, would be my take on this one. I think we could go down to 3 hatcheries and get another blue source in the deck. I think that would make quite a big difference here. So we go -1 hatchery, +1 underground sea. I think that would be a good way to approach things. Now, we could go lower on Death Shadow because we don't really want them early on. So you could even trim this and have another piece of interaction, because we are essentially trying to play a control deck. Maybe you could even trim on Perilous Research, but then we're getting a little bit thin on win conditions. You might also be asking, why was there no Murktide Regent in this list? Because we have these hatcheries. The blue-blue, as you saw, is not always the easiest thing for our deck to come by. So I kind of wanted to stick with the Death Shadow. Now, is it worth doing this thing is definitely another question you can ask yourself. And I don't know. Probably not, because of how powerful like the blue-black Reanimator deck is. It's very hard, in my opinion, to justify playing something that isn't that. Blue-black Tempo is fine, but I just think that you should play blue-black Reanimator if you want to play like a blue-black Tempo-ish deck. But we definitely found some interesting lines here today. We definitely had a deck that looked pretty respectable. Bit of Triumph is a good removal spell. Having this that also kind of enables our threat is certainly an interesting one. This threat not being Pyroblastable is also pretty good. So yeah, I think you can have a little bit of tinkering here, but the general plan of draw a bunch of cards, trade 1 for 1 with your opponent, win the game with a big guy to end the game quickly. You know, that's a tried and tested way of playing Magic the Gathering. Now, are we going to come horribly unstuck when we play against something like a Nadu deck where we trade 1 for 1 a bunch and then they just draw like 50 cards and win the game? Yeah, probably. But that is the nature of the beast sometimes. But we are playing a bunch of good cards, and the Perilous Research was okay here. We didn't get to sacrifice an Orcish Bowmaster token, which is something I forgot to mention in the intro to the deck, that this is kind of part of the engine. So you've got clues you can sacrifice, you've got Bowmaster token, and you've got Eumidian Hatchery, as well as like excess lands, or like Wastelands in matchups where they're no good. So there's a fair few things to sack to the Research. But you could argue that it should be 3 Hatchery, 3 Research. And then you could maybe add in like a second Ransom, and then cut one of these, and then add a couple more interaction spells. Or like add 1 interaction spell of some description. Possibly like another counter spell. Maybe a Spell Pierce. I do quite like Spell Pierce. That's another option that is available. But yeah, so I think there is definitely something here. Now, by playing the Death Shadow, you don't get to play Barragoyf really, because that's a bit of a nombo, where you gain a bunch of life and your Death Shadow dies. So that is a little bit unfortunate, because Barragoyf is clearly a very powerful Magic the Gathering card that does a lot of things and can just auto-win some matchups. So that might be the part where this comes undone a little bit. But I did like the idea of going wide and going tall, and we did see that a couple of times. Sideboard-wise, you can just tinker with different sideboard cards. We did actually reach for all of these cards at some point, I think. I don't remember if we boarded in the Cursed Totem against the Stoneforge. I don't think we did. I think this might be the only one. I guess we didn't reach for the Force of Negations or the Consign, but you know what they're in for, and they're going to be useful when it comes in. Actually, no, we boarded in the Consign against the Universal Spells matchup, I think, and the Force of Negations, right? Yeah. So we boarded everything in at some point apart from the Cursed Totem, but you can definitely tinker with it. Yeah, let me know what you think. Can we tweak this and make it a little bit more control-y, a little bit more card advantage-y? Yes, Death Shadow is probably not the best threat to be trying to win the game with, especially when you could play something like Murktide Regent that has flying. But being able to ignore the graveyard for people who are playing lots of graveyard hate right now is relevant. Being able to avoid the Pyroblast of the world is also relevant. So it's not like it's completely nonsense. And it does mean that when you're paying life, it doesn't feel quite so bad, right? So you're kind of turning the drawback of some of your cards. Like, we basically want to be like a bit of Triumph, Thoughtseize, Eumidian Hatchery deck. And we're kind of using the drawback of these cards to fuel something else. So it's not necessarily a Death Shadow deck that we're building around. It's kind of like this selection of cards here that we're building around that just leans itself into building with a Death Shadow. So, yeah. How would you build this deck? And do you think there's something here? Were you excited to see this one? Let me know. Like, I'm putting some brews on the channel here and there. And it's important to know if you like the brews or you just want to see like all the top decks all the time. I sculpt my content around what you lovely people out there want to watch. So, just let me know. All right, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, why not become a member for just $1 a month and see my videos early and give me a little bit of support. It's always appreciated. All right, have a lovely day and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo decks guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.